All right, pretend like you didn't say anything, and now introduce yourself.
I'm Aaron. I'm here to tell you guys about how to make your UIs a little more interesting and less boring in Unity through UI animations. So let me open up a boring scene for you. Give you an idea here. This is just a little test scene I made. Sorry, this screen's a little bit of lag. I'll show you what I'm getting at here. Okay. If you play this scene, you get a button you press, something happens, it's great. If you want to show a message, toggle it on and off, that's cool. This is sort of a normal UI you can write in 2 seconds, which gets the word across, but doesn't really feel as interesting as it would if it was animated. So, if you open up the exciting scene, where everything's in all caps, is that exciting? Now you click the button, it bounces as the blocks bounce and hit the ground. And then you hit this, slides down, slides up, just feels more gamey. So this is not difficult to do in Unity, but the UI for it's a little bit difficult to deal with. So I want to show you guys how to do that. So I'm going to go back to the boring scene and make it look like this scene. So the first thing you got to do is open up the animation window and create a new clip. So you're going to record. Okay, yeah, you have to have this guy selected in the scene view. So he starts out like this. So you go to animation, create new clip. So you can say the animation clip. Let's just save it right here and call it slide up. And this works sort of on a keyframe system, so it's pretty easy to work with. So let's put you over here. I want to record a frame maybe 30 seconds in. There it is. And all you need to do is go to the scene view and move it up. So just the click me button is showing. Pretty straightforward. So snap it to 0. Let's make that 0. So now you've got a little animation of panels sliding up. And if you want to make it faster, you can just drag keyframes around. It's pretty simple to work with. And this works with any parameter of the UI element. So you can scale it like I did with the button, or you can just move it. So let's make it go up in maybe 15 milliseconds. See how that looks. That's not bad. Alright, so you've got the animation. Now what you need to do is you need to construct something called a state machine. Who here's heard of a state machine before? Yeah, state machines, they're cool. So they use them in animation right here. So right now I just have one state, which is slide up. And there's the entry, which goes into slide up, which is your default state. But you don't want that to be your default state, because when you play the scene, you don't want it to instantly slide up. You want it to start up. So what we need to do is actually record another animation, which is just one frame of the panel being up. So let's go to animation, create a new clip, panel up, oh, nope. And now go back to the scene. First we just do that. Recording. Let's make its height 0. There we go. I think that did it. So now we just have this little simple little animation of it being at 0. So if we go back to the animator, we should have panel up and slide up. And we'll make this the default state. So right now, if I play the scene, we should just see the panel being up, which doesn't really do anything at the moment. So what you can do is now you can start making transitions. So panel up, you want to transition into, so this is another useful thing. I have an animation called slide up, and I want to have an equal and opposite animation called slide down. So I duplicate this. Alright, I think you can just control D it, and call this guy slide down. And I just make the speed -1. So now it's the same thing played in reverse. So panel up goes to slide down. Just make a transition. Boom. And now I need a state for when the panel is just down. So I'm sort of going to have just create an empty state called, let's call it do nothing. Do nothing. Make a transition from here to here. Make a transition here to here. Transition from here to here. So now we have a state machine. It starts that up. When something happens, it slides down and does nothing. Something else happens, it slides up and does nothing. So now we need to set up the conditions for these animations to happen. So to do that, we need to make a parameter. So we create a bool. which starts out false.
A question.
Yes.
So if you run this right now, will it just cycle through all the states?
Right now, I believe it would, yeah, because these transitions are set with no condition, so they just basically go through once the animation is done playing. So we can actually test that. That'd be cool to see. Yep. And yeah, there's a little bit of a flash there, and I'll talk about that in a second. So you need to have some way of sort of stopping that from happening. So now what we need to do is say, I want to do this transition not just, so it has exit time, basically means once the animation stops, it goes to the next state, and it just cycles through. So we uncheck that, and then we add a condition. Panel down. So when panel down is true, start sliding down. This state, we want to, this transition, we want to just basically go to the next state once the animation is played. So that one doesn't need a condition. This one also needs a condition. So once it's down in the do nothing state, we need to say when panel down is false, then start sliding up and end up here. So you sort of alternate between these two states, and I can show you that once it works. So right now, if we play it, it will just do nothing because that bool is staying false. So you need to write a quick little script to make that bool true. So this is assuming that you guys have a basic understanding of Unity. If you don't, just try and follow along. So let's go to this guy. I've got a script right now, panel GUI controller. Write a quick little bit of code. So I want to be able to get at the animator. So let's have a public variable for that.
I hear you typing on my weird keyboard.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So now let's do. Oh gosh. So basically, when you click the button, we want to tell the animator. No, not the animator. Oh my god, Jeff. Animator. No.
I need to get your keyboard.
I know. No, it's fine.
I don't feel as your friend.
Yeah. So animator dot. This has a bunch of functions where you can set these parameters. So we set the bool. So we say, what did I call it? Panel down or something?
Panel down.
Panel down. And we want to set it to whatever it currently is not. So we basically want to toggle it. So we get the bool. So basically, I just toggle the state of that bool whenever I click the button. And now, it just takes one line of code. Oh, thank you. Live coding.
Live coding.
It's pretty exciting. Here we go. All right. Yeah. So now this should work. It's going to look a little weird. Oh, this will not work because I have to tell it what the animator is. So I just drag this guy in rather than getting it on start because sometimes it runs into issues. Something happens in the first frame. There it is. So a little weird. You can see like that flash that happens there. That's because by default all animations are set to loop, so it tries to loop the animation because this isn't necessarily built for this stuff. So we go here, double click on that to get to the action underneath, and uncheck loop time. So now it won't loop. Let's do that. That one's already set. So now we should get a nice little animation. So there's also a little bit of delay. This is something I ran into as well, and that's because on the transition here, we actually want to uncheck. Okay, 6 times is unchecked. I think it's right here. Yeah, so basically now what we can do, if we uncheck that, we won't see the delay, and you can watch the state machine go as I run this. Let's see how this looks. Okay. There we go. Now you should be able to see that. Okay, so now it's in the panel up state. So as soon as I click that, down there. Click that, goes up. So just with a simple little 4-state state machine, you can get a nice little animation.
So it's actually looping those.
Yeah, it's looping this little empty state, but because I unchecked that box, it can leave in the middle of the loop.
So the do nothing state doesn't have a time.
Exactly, yeah.
So it's just, it really basically, could you just have it go from slide down directly to slide up?
Oh, that's a good point, actually, yeah. This might actually be unnecessary, because if I say slide down, don't loop, it'll just stay in its last, it'll play the animation and stop. Yeah, that would probably work. But yeah, that's the simple little Unity UI tutorial for you guys.
Could you put a time on that do nothing for 1 second or something like that? Or can you do that?
I don't think I can because there's no actual recorded motion for it, yeah. So I think by default, it has a little bit of time to it, of about a second, but...
Are you going to cover the click me one?
I can if we have time, but...
You want to see it?
Right now you're at 10 minutes, so you can either...
Alright, I'll blaze through it real quick, because this is a little fun.
Way more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, so maybe I should take a little of my own time. So let's record another animation for this guy. This one, this will introduce you to triggers, which are sort of like bools, but they're have a little less built in. So let's go to animation. Let's record a new clip. Let's call it bounce. Okay, let's get rid of this window. Come on. Okay, so bounce. It's gonna be interesting because what I like to do. This is actually Jeff's idea. So I started out at 0. Cue button set. So I'm going to say let's go 10 milliseconds in. And let's make the scale 1.3, not 13. 1. There it is, 1.3, 1.3.
Your office is locked, I couldn't get it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's fine. So we basically swell up a bit and then come back here. 10 milliseconds later, it should snap to it. There it is. And change the scale again. Cool. And then what I like to do is have a little bit of a bounce down. So for 5 milliseconds, it goes to maybe 0.8. So it gives a little bit more of a bounciness. And you can play around with this and get some really cool looking stuff. And then here we come back up to 1, so it loops nicely. Boom, boom, boom. So now if you play it, you should get something that looks kind of bouncy, like that. It's already kind of reminds you of old websites from the 90s, but that's fine. So now, if you have this animation, let's take a look at the state machine.
From the 90s.
Oh yeah, so did I win something?
Yeah, great, grabs your attention. So now we just basically can have, I think here I will need a do nothing state where basically the button does nothing and doesn't animate. This will only take 2 states. And that'll be the new, oh nope, I renamed the wrong thing. Do nothing. Let's call this guy bounce. Let's make you the default. And then let's make a transition to here. Transition to here. So this transition will need a parameter. So we're going to add something called a trigger. So a trigger is sort of like a bool, but once it's used for a transition, it flips back. So basically, it'll start out false. I set it true. It gets used for a transition, and then it's back to being false. So I don't have to sort of manually deal with the bool flipping. So let's call this bounce, just for simplicity. And then we can say this transition. Let's make the condition bounce. Easy enough. And once it's done bouncing, we want to say after it's done bouncing, go back to doing nothing. And that's the pretty simple state machine. So let's come back to the scene. Let's edit the script I have for this guy, button GUI controller. Same sort of idea. Already have a spot for it. Animator dot set trigger. This doesn't require anything other than the name of the trigger, because it just toggles it. And there we go. That will work once I drag this guy in. Quite simple to make nice little animations. Here. So that is because I forgot to uncheck that thing on the transition from do nothing. Does not have an exit time. So that basically means it doesn't have a set amount of time it has to play before you can go to the next state. Now it'll happen whenever I click it. And there you go. Back to the exciting scene. Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right, man. Well done.
Save.
Did you want to just talk just for a minute about Unity 4.6, the new GUI, Unity 5, for people that really aren't familiar with Unity?
Oh, okay.
And you know, what is Unity in sort of the game development world, for those that aren't aware?
Yeah, so Unity is a really widely used platform for making games that run across a lot of platforms, hence the name Unity. And before Unity 4.6, which came out a couple months ago, maybe?
I think it was
It was a little while ago. Before that,
6 months ago.
the GUI system was absolutely atrocious. It was all in script. There was no interface for doing it. You had one giant function that handled all your GUI. Everyone hated it. 4.6 came out and they added this thing called a canvas where you could have, transforms for your GUI elements. You could set their anchors. It was an actual full-fledged GUI system, which was great. And also this animation system, which was originally intended and is still used for animating actual characters, but it's very general purpose, so you can use it for UI as well. So that has been a big leap in Unity's technology since in the past year or so. When we started, it was awful, and now it's great for UI, is what I'd say.
And Shane, you're developing your stuff in Unity, right?
Yeah.
And we are as well. And I think for people that are wondering about, well, what should I use for game development? Unity is a very comprehensive game platform for 2D and 3D games. We just published a game to iOS App Store and Android Store, Google Play. But it also runs on PC, it runs on Mac. You can run on Linux if you want. You can actually run it in a web player. So there's a huge number of options, and it's free if you earn less than $100,000 a year from your game revenue.
Yeah.
So
And it's pretty
you really
full
can't beat
featured.
it, and it's very, very well done. It's well documented, reasonably well documented. So
Yeah, and one thing I would also say, especially that is relevant for indie game developers, is they have a really rich asset store full of a bunch of code and libraries and that sort of stuff, but also like models and animations and music and
particle effects,
all sorts of stuff. And actually, I didn't, as a professional software developer, I really loathed kind of buying code because it all comes with its own strings, its own licenses, and it's kind of a nightmare to deal with. And I would always prefer open source substitutes because then I just don't have to deal with that issue of can I redistribute this, or can I only use this in this particular context, or only for education, or this or that. And the really nice thing, also about the asset store, there's also a ton of free stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that you buy, and if you can save yourself, a couple hours a day of development time by spending $5, I'm all for it.
Andy was pressed within weeks.
Yeah, but the thing that's nice is, anything on the Unity Asset Store has one license, that you can use to redistribute, when you make a game. So it's been the most, the nicest software buying experience that I've ever had. So.
Yeah, we use Easy Touch off of the Unity Asset Store for all of our touch gestures on the Android tablet and the Apple iPad and iPhone, and it just works. It's been great, pinch, zoom, and pan, and tap, touch, and all that stuff, which just worked right out of the box. So cool. It's great.
It's always nice to purchase software when it actually just works.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a nightmare, but it wasn't much. It was that was about $30 or something. But my God, it would cost a fortune for us to write it.
Mm-hmm.
So did Fisher show up, or he went somewhere else?
I haven't seen them.
All right.
One question before Jeff's up. How many people have something to do for the little 5-minute show and tell slots? I've got something.
All right.
Anybody else? I just want to know how short of a leash I should keep Jeff on. Anybody?
We can show off our little prototype, but we don't have it. I don't have anything to plug it into the screen with.
I think that's fine. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. Right, Jeff, you can run rampant.
Once you get me talking, you won't shut up. I'm talking to an empty room. Okay. I'm going to talk about this 3D modeling program tonight called Rhino 3D, which we use to develop our 3D models for the robots that we're doing, very realistic robots. If you check out our website, zemry.com, and maybe I'll show it to you guys later. And the real reason I'm using it is because the guy who worked with me on this, He was using it. He's a professional 3D designer from Hasbro and Mattel. He now has his own consultancy company, and he also works with the people who develop this software. He trains people in it, and I asked him, so why do people use this anyway? Because, you know, everyone said, oh, you should use SolidWorks, or you should use Blender, or you should use Maya, or whatever else is out there. And what he told me was interesting. He said that people who are designers tend to gravitate toward Rhino in terms of industrial designers that are not on the engineering side. So if you're sort of trying to do like an industrial engineering design, you might use SolidWorks. I just want to make sure that's not someone trying to get in the door. No. People who are doing game design, a lot of people will use Maya, okay, because of some of its animation capabilities and developing characters for games. That's not really what we're doing. We're doing robots. People will use Blender because it's free. So I'm not saying, oh, you should use Rhino. I'm just saying this is why we use it. I'll show you some of the things that we can do and some of the things that I was sort of amazed with. But before doing that, I want you to understand where we're coming from. We're developing this game, and what's important for us is to create a sort of a futuristic 3D world. And some of my inspiration from that is coming from architecture. Before we do that, a shameless plug for our new game. We just put this out on the App Store 2 days ago, on Google Play, maybe a week before that. Cubotic, that's the website, cubotic.com. If you go there, you can download our game. We want as many people as possible to download it, put it on your phone, your tablet, whatever. Give us an awesome rating, all right? And we will do the same for you. It's really important as a group that we support each other because it's a massive ocean of games out there, and we're a single drop. So we're going to celebrate next week that we finally got our first game out. We're pretty excited. Okay, I'm going to talk about now Neo-futurism, which is a sort of direction in architecture. So when you see some of the newest, coolest buildings around, many of them are in the neo-futuristic style, the new future style. One of the leading architects in the world is a woman named Zaha Hadid. She is an Iraqi born in Baghdad, now has her practice in London, has an entire army of architects working with her, and designs really many of the leading buildings in the Middle East and in China. And also does some stuff in the US. There's a condo complex she just designed. But she does big stuff, you know, like airports and cultural centers, like really, really big buildings. I'll show you some of her stuff. This isn't hers, but this is an example. If you look at this building and these different floors and these beautiful curves that are used, we're going to see this, you know, again and again as a combination of these curved and rectilinear forms. This is sort of reminds us of the nautilus shape, right? This is a logarithmic spiral. This is Gehrig's, one of Gehrig's buildings. We're kind of looking up toward the sky. This is an exoskeleton on a building. You see this a lot now, and this is using sort of a Voronoi tessellation. For those of you that are mathematicians, you'll know what Voronoi is, but basically you put a bunch of points down, and we're going to draw lines that go between the points and kind of evenly space them. All right, here's another example of a series of lines or arches that are enclosing a space. This is an airport in the Middle East. This is the same airport, more curves you see moving in both directions. Okay, there's the airport, there's another part of it. And you know, what I'm seeing is, okay, if you see this stuff that's really cool, there's a lot of use of curves, and then you have to sort of fit in these planar surfaces or these surfaces between the curves, and like, how do you do that? And that's something that Rhino really excels at, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. Okay, this is one of Hadid's buildings. I think this is in China. A combination residential office complex. Another view of that. You'll see all the curves again. Hey, come on in. How you doing?
Pretty good, sorry.
Are you Fisher?
Huh?
You're not Fisher, right?
No.
No, come on, grab a seat.
Searching for Fisher.
We're looking for Fisher, who is going to present tonight. Okay, so another example of one of Hadid's buildings. You see kind of the layering effect. This is one of the buildings that she designed. I'll give you another view of it right here. Okay, this is the concept, but this was actually built. Another, I think this is like a cultural center. Here's a super yacht that she designed, you know, she wasn't busy one weekend and did a yacht in the same kind of style. I joke with Aaron, like, I don't want to be the guy who has to clean the windows because there's no squeegee that's going to work. It's probably all curved like this. And you have to do it by hand. In indoor stadium, this is a concept as well. You'll see the curves again. There's that same airport. And then this is, hey, how you doing?
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. We'll get you toward the end if we can fit you in.
Sounds good.
Okay. So this is another exoskeleton with the Voronoi tessellation again. Like think of if you had a point in the middle of each of these, then these lines would kind of split the points apart, and you create this web, and you would drape it over the building. Here's another example of that, more from the outside. So when I look at this stuff, I go, yeah, that's the world I want my robots to be in. It's really cool. You know, I have no idea how to design this stuff, but I can find people to do it. So Rhino is one of the tools that could be used. So I'm going to now show you a couple things in Rhino. I'm like a novice, not even intermediate person in Rhino. There are people who could really make this thing sing, but I'll show you a couple things that it can do. And then if we have time for questions, we'll do that. All right. So I'm really just going to show you Rhino and then Grasshopper. They kind of go together. We'll start out with this. So this is Rhino or Rhinoceros 5. I think everyone just calls it Rhino. So we have 4 views. This is a 3D view here. I have a couple of curves defined. This is the view from the top, from the front, and from the right. So anybody that uses CAD systems is pretty familiar with that. You can you double click and just have one view take over the whole viewport. So what I wanted to do here is I said, okay, I've got these cool curves that I've done using some control points. So I have this curve that's sweeping, and now I want to create a surface between those curves, right? And that's what Rhino does, because it defines all of its objects using something called NURBS, which are non-uniform rational B-splines. And the B-spline is a mathematical representation of a curve, right, where you set some control points, and that curve sort of moves according to where the control points are. If you pull the points out, you get more of a curve. If you take that, that's a line, okay, it's just moving along in sort of this single plane, right, in 2 dimensions. If you do it in 3 dimensions, right, you can create this B-spline surface, right? It can be defined mathematically, so it's not a mesh, which is what you're typically dealing with in other programs. You can turn it into a mesh when you want to bring it in your game, but you can manipulate it here and do all kinds of things with it, twist it, you can cut through it, and so on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a surface tool here. I'll go to this menu and I'm going to do something called loft. Now when I click this, you're going to see up here it says select the curves to loft, right? Well, I'm going to pick this curve and I'm going to pick this curve. Now it may or may not loft it properly, we'll see. Okay, so now it's actually done a twist. So I'm going to align my curves here. I really just need to flip this around. I don't really like, there we go. We flipped it, and I'll hit enter and say OK. And now I've got that one curve defined. Right? Let's do the next one. Same thing. I want to pick this. It's going to ask me, do I want the curve or the edge? And I want the curve. Okay, and I want to connect it to this guy. So one curve to another. Loft that. Align those. Flip that around. Let's have a look. Okay. Does that look right? Yeah, that looks right. And now, what you might wonder is, well, why is one red and why is one gray? When you're working in graphics and also in games, you have something called a normal, which is a vector that is really perpendicular to the surface. And if your normals, people know who are doing games, if you've got your normals flipped, then you're going to see through surfaces that you don't want to, and you won't see through ones you want to see through. So we're going to take this surface, I'm going to click on it, I'm just going to type flip up here, you'll see in the upper left, well, almost Filippo there, flip like that, and I'll just flip this around. So this is a lofted, 2 lofted surfaces that are sharing the center. It kind of looks like a big tongue. But that's not really what I wanted. What I wanted was a smooth surface that went between all 3 curves. So I'm going to do another loft, and I'm going to take this, and that, and I'm going to enter it. Now, I've got some work to do here, right? I've got to flip my stuff around. And that's okay. We do align curves, and we can do the same thing, right? We're going to flip one of these guys. Boom, like that. Okay, and we'll say okay. And now I have my very cool design surface. So what I'm trying to show you here is that by creating a series of curves, you can then define a surface. And in Rhino, if you take a closed surface, you've now created a solid, right? And then with that solid, you can subtract things from it, you can add things or unify with what's called a union. So this is a very basic thing that Rhino does. I'm going to walk you through a couple of more examples that get more sophisticated. Let's just close this file. I'll open another one. Nope, just leave it the way it was. And now we're going to go to this thing called tower twist. All right, so here, what I'm going to do is I've predefined that curve, and then I've created, this is a curve sitting on the XY, or the ground plane, if you like. Right? And I just took 3 lines, I kind of did my control points, made them curve a bit, I connected them all together, then I made a copy up here and made it a little bit smaller. And now, instead of doing a loft, I'm going to do a sweep. So I'm going to click sweep, and it asks me, select the rail. Well, this is the rail I want to sweep along, right here. Okay, and now it says select my cross-section curves. Well, I want to start with this guy, and I want to end with this guy, right? And I'll press enter. Now, it's basically asking me, do you want this point and that point? Does this point equal that point up there? Yes, it does. I'll hit enter, and I'll do that. I'll say OK. I'll grab this guy. I'll flip him, right? And then I'll cap him, or her, right? And now I have this 3D solid that I've made. So I've made this tower that twists around a little bit, right? That's pretty cool. Now I can make it even cooler by running that sweep again, doing the same thing, clicking on this, and clicking on my cross-sectional curves here and there, pressing enter. And now I'm going to say, well, I don't want really this point to end up here. I want that point to end up over here. So that means that this guy has got to come and twist all the way around to that position. There we go. Okay. And then again, I don't really need to flip it now, but you can see that I've created this pretty cool thing. Actually, what I'm going to do next, I am going to need to flip it. I'll show you why. Unknown command, fit. Okay. And cap. Okay, so that's pretty cool. I want to put some windows in this thing because it's my tower, it's my building. Go to visibility, and I'm just going to hide. I've hidden that surface, that actual solid now, because I capped it. And I'm going to kind of go to the right-hand view here. Yeah, this is good. So if you look at this, this is my top here. It's pretty hard to see from the back. That's my bottom curve, and then this is my my rail, if you like. I'm going to grab this thing. I'm going to create like my window is going to be like something like that. Let's go that size. Let's go to the front now. And I'm going to need this thing to go right through the tower. So I'll do that. And I'm going to bring this back. And maybe drop it a little bit. Now what I want to do is I want my window, this thing I'm going to use to subtract from the other solid. I'm going to pull that rectangular bar right through, and I'm going to have a window going right through it. But I don't want to just go up like this. I want it to go up and around. So I'm going to make an array of these things and run them along that rail. Right? So you can type in a command here. This is called array curve. You see I've used it before. I want to array this single object. You can do multiple objects if you want. Enter. And I want to select it along this curve here. And I want, let's say, 7 of them. Okay. So you see that's kind of arrayed. Now let's look at this thing in 3D and see what we've got. Okay. That looks good. Let's go down. This one's clearly not in the building. Right? And now let's bring back our surface, and we have this is pretty cool already. It's like, we looked at this earlier and said, oh, it looks like somebody's, spine or something if we made those pieces shorter. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to subtract. I'm going to go to my solid tool now, and I'm going to use something called a Boolean difference. And I'm going to subtract from this surface, right? Enter. And I'm going to subtract this
this, this, this. I'm clicking on all of them, right? So cracked all those and hit enter. And now I have my very weird, twisted building shape. So this isn't as cool as Zaha Hadid stuff, but it's early. Give me a few years, you know? I don't know. So what I tried to show here was that you can take a shape and then you can twist it and then you can subtract things, but you can also repeat things along an array. The next thing I'm going to show you is that there's a companion thing that was written called Grasshopper, and Grasshopper is really the visual programming for Rhino. And what it allows you to do is, like, for instance, if I wanted to change the amount of twisting here, I'd have to go back and redo the curve and respecify everything. But if I did it with Grasshopper, I could just tweak it and it would update it on the fly, which is something that gives you far more interactivity. So,
Is Grasshopper an adjunct or add-on to Rhino?
right, it's an add-on. It's a free add-on for Rhino. It was written by a guy named David Rutten or something. I think he's a Dutch guy. I will tell you, I've been in the software business for a long time, and I saw the stuff that he did, and this guy is brilliant. I mean, the software works really well, but the kind of things that he threw in there are just really impressive from what we'll call a very efficient user interface perspective. So think of somebody that uses a product every day, you know, for hours. Well, you know, this isn't the same person that you write code for where they're going to play this game, you know, once a month or use software casually. So it has to be very efficient. So there's some very cool shortcuts, including things like he put in a Markov chain to anticipate the next command that you would use. So there's a Markov model that says, oh, well, you did this and you usually do this next, so I'm going to make that thing available to you. You know, I mean, we might have all had that idea, but he did it really well. Here, let me get rid of this. All right, so now I'm going to do two things here. Let me just move this over here. And I'm going to start. So you type Grasshopper here, and it starts up, and typically we kind of dock it on the right, because it's going to work with Rhino on the left. So this is this visual programming area. He has this really cool thing that says, oh, here's some files that you used before, and how long ago you used them. So I thought, this is really cool, you know, you don't have a list, you have this 1.4 hours ago, 1 day ago, and so on. Let me close this guy. No, how do I do that? No, I want to move this guy over. Sorry. Maybe I can just push him away. Yeah, good enough. Okay. What I want to show you here is sort of this interactivity thing. So I'm going to go to my curve tool, and this is my favorite. This is my control point curve. And from the top, which is here, I'm going to create one curve. Let's say something like this. All right, let me have this take over for a while. And now I'm going to do it again. I'm going to have this curve like this. All right. What I want to do is I want to draw a set of lines between these two curves. Now, that doesn't really seem like 3D modeling, but think of these curves. They could be walls, and I want to actually draw, you know, surfaces between them at some even interval. I'm creating some kind of really weird shape. So what I'm going to do here, the first thing I'm going to do, see, I double-clicked on the background, and if I type divide, it shows me all the divide stuff. I want divide my curve. Okay. And now I'm going to click on this. So this is like a visual programming widget. And I'm going to input one curve. And I'll click it here. And if we go look at n, okay, it's set to 10. Well, I don't want it to be 10. I want, here I'm going to put in a slider here, a number slider, and I'll take my n and I'll hook it up. And before I do that, I don't have to edit this guy because he's sort of crazy. I want it to be actually an integer, right? And I want my minimum value to be 2 and my maximum value to be 100. And I'll start off with my default value of, say, 10. And we'll see if that works. Okay, so I have 10 points. And if I change my slider, right, I get more points. Isn't that cool? Now, that's one of them, but I have 2 curves, so I'm going to click on this guy, click Alt, I'm going to copy him. And now my slider goes to both of them. But for this one, I don't want the same curve. I won't, sorry. Got to kind of click on this guy, set one curve, and do that. Right, so now they both have 10 points, or 14, and I can change the number of points that they have. Now I wanted to draw a line. So let's go back here. You guys can figure out where I'm going, right? I'm just going to take a point here, and another point here. And now I want to create a line element. Okay, this line right here. It has an A and a B as a point, so I need a point here. I can take that one and put this one over here. So this represents a point, but these are orange, means they don't have the right input. So I'm going to right click here, I'm going to set one point, and I'll grab this point, and then this one I'll right click, set one point, I'll grab that point. Okay, that's good, and I will connect, just drag this to here. Even the lines they do are nice, aren't they? These little Bezier curves. So there we go. Now I can still grab this, all right, and move this around. Now, of course, you could do this in Rhino, but when you see what I do next, you'll say, okay, that might not be so easy to do. So I like these lines, but I don't need this stuff right now. Let me get rid of that. Let me bring this over here. This doesn't just take a point. This can take a list of points. So these are the points from curve number 1, and these are the points from curve number 2, and now we have our lines. So I can change this. Now, I could have decided that instead of this being a line, these points, I could create another set of lines up here with the same number of points. I could have used those 4 points to define a surface or even a curve or so on, and I could have created this really complex thing, and then I could change my sliders around to sort of change the design of it. So this is Grasshopper. Now I'm going to show you, the last thing I'm going to show you in a little bit of time, is 3D Voronoi using Grasshopper, which starts to approach kind of what they were doing. So here, let's file. Here. Oh, I'll get that in a second. Let me just get rid of this. So I think that this thing is really brilliant, and people are using this in 3D printing. So this is algorithmic modeling, right? You're creating like these things, and you're changing them. You can have functions in here and all kind of other stuff. I'm just touching the surface. So let's go get our Voronoi 3D points here. All right, so I have a bunch of points in 3D, right? You can see them here. And what I want to do is create one of those kind of weird honeycomb 3D Voronoi surfaces that contain those points. So I set this up earlier. It was too long for me to walk you through this. I think you guys would have fallen asleep if you're not already asleep. So I have this now. What I'm going to do is, this is my point input. I'm just going to go grab all of these points here, like this, and say enter here. Okay. Oh, I guess I've turned this off. Preview. That's my box. I'll have to change that a little bit. Oh. Okay, so you kind of see that. I'll show you this in 3D in a second. These are defining the boundaries of my box. I'll need to increase my Y value a little bit. Oh, something like that's probably good. Oh, no, need all the points in there. It's pretty sensitive. I probably should change the range. So let's look at this in perspective. So I've created this Voronoi tesselation within this box based on those points that I defined. And now what I want to do, I'll go to the top, is I want to take this curve right here. I'll show you back in perspective. And I'm going to create a sheet of that, and then I'm going to cut the thing, and then I'm going to start peeling away the layers, and I'll be left with something that maybe I could use in my game, maybe not. Top. So let's go to curve.
Is it showing that in red because it's all selected?
It's a good question. It's showing it in red because it doesn't yet exist in Rhino. It exists in Grasshopper.
Oh.
And then what I do is I have to, once I'm done, I have to bake it to transfer the model into Rhino. So it's showing me what I'm going to get.
So surface, I'm going to extrude this guy. You see how that curve now is going to stretch out like this? I can show you this in 3D as well. Ooh, like that. Right? So here, we'll run it out to something like that. I'll come back to perspective. Now I'm going to use something called the trim tool. Right? And I'm going to say, look, before I do that, nope, can't do that yet. Hold on. I said I had to bake this thing. I really do need to bake it.
Is that an actual bake command that you?
Yeah, there it is.
Click and find
Bake.
it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you bake it. You right click on it and bake it. Now it's created, and that's why I'm going to go now. I'm going to turn off the preview because I don't need both of those things in there. I also don't need this box to be visible. So this is now really inside of Rhino. So now I go and say, look, I want to use. Wait a second. There, here, trim. It's not right. Oh, I see. Maybe it's going on. Trim. This is my cutting object. Enter. And now I'm going to start cutting this stuff away. All right. So anywhere that touches there, it'll cut away. The rest of the stuff I'll probably have to click away after. Let's go like this. Because I'm trying to expose this curved surface. And this is something I'm just experimenting with. I mean, I'm really just starting to figure it out. So I don't think this guy's touching. No. So once we're done, we'll do that, and then I can just get rid of these. These are cells now. They're these 3D objects. I mean, they're already pretty cool. Right, and then I had this surface on top. Let's get rid of that. So I'm kind of left with this now. Like the red flashing you're seeing are two planes trying to occupy the same space. Okay. The way to get rid of that is sort of go to your front view. Zoom out a little bit. I'll select everything. And I'm going to do an explosion. So I'm breaking it all up into planes now. They're no longer individual objects. Right, and now I can go through and say, okay, delete this, delete that. I can flip the normals after if I want. And I can also say, oh, I don't really need these top panels. I mean, they're not really making this very interesting, or maybe the back ones.
Are you going to have anything left?
Yeah, well, that's what you have to play with. Decide what do you keep, what do you get rid of, right? But this is something that I don't think I can make, by just, let me get in with my modeling and create all these planes. So I'm able to create this 3D Voronoi, and maybe I can get some ideas from this shape or what have you. Now, what people have done is created the 2D Voronoi like you see on the exoskeleton. They take a 2D and they extrude it, and they create this web, and then they curve the whole thing. So you get like this mesh thing that you can make in the shape of the dome. That's the next thing I want to try and do, but I'm not yet at that skill level. So this was a quick introduction. There's Rhino, which uses curves and NURBS, right? And then Grasshopper, which is sort of the visual programming environment for Rhino 3D.
How expensive a tool? Grasshopper's free, but Rhino.
So yeah, Rhino is if you have an education affiliation, or you have a kid that goes to school somewhere, then it's like $150. If you want the pro version, I think it's around $800, right? But for the kind of stuff that we're doing, I would gladly buy it. I just want to show you real quick for those of you that haven't seen this. These robots were all done in Rhino. And you can see the influence of the curves everywhere, right? Kyle Houchins did these. And he taught me, enough to be dangerous with Rhino, enough to screw up the models. I really needed to learn it so we could get it into the game, and start working with it. But extremely versatile.
What did you render those out with?
So those are rendered with, they may be Brazil, within Rhino, with either Brazil or Neon. So there's a pretty sophisticated renderer right in there, and you can set these materials like aluminum or whatever. But the rendering, would take 5 minutes or something for each one of those. Although we got pretty close in Unity with, this metallic rendering. I mean, not that quality with the ray tracing, but...
Is Brazil part of Rhino? Or
no, that's even more money. I think that's another $800.
Right.
But these are tools for people that do this every day, right? So what do they spend $1,000 or $2,000 on a tool when it's her livelihood. That's not where the money is.
What if you just want to draw one 3D, create one 3D airplane wing?
Well, so think about that wing, right? That wing has all kind of curved surfaces on it,
Yeah.
right? You can do that. I mean, you have to decide.
In
Like,
what? I mean, you have to get the program to do that? You're saying it was for people that do this all the time. What if I want to?
right, if you wanted to do, you could use a Google SketchUp. I don't know if it does surfaces very well. The other Blender is free. Blender's it's got quite a learning curve on it. Like, so does Rhino. Blender a little bit because their UI is unusual. They went out into sort of a new area UI design. How many widgets can you put per square inch? So yeah, I think any 3D modeling is not simple. This idea that you just jump in and you in an hour figure it out, that hasn't been my experience.
Are these being rendered on the fly when they're in your game? I did play this at the Tech Exchange.
Right, so these are rendered on the fly in the game,
Right.
but they're not going to have that level of detail.
Right.
Because this is done with ray tracing, right? In the game, they use some tricks. Although the new version of Unity uses what's called PBR, which is physics-based rendering, and that's closer to sort of the ray traced, treatment of light.
So you just rendered them up nice for this page.
Yeah, we did it for here, and then the ones in the game are sort of approximations. It's pretty typical in gaming, right? Like, here's an awesome picture, and then you have this little pixelated version. Mario comes to mind.
Just quickly, how easy is it to get something like that thing that you just made into like Maya or somewhere else if you want to work?
Okay, so you can export that as a mesh, and then you can bring it directly into Maya. So, and Unity has a huge number of formats that it supports. So you can export an FBX, 3DS. I don't use 3DS as much. We did before. And you can also import from Maya into here as well. But you're importing a mesh, and there are mesh editing tools in Rhino, right? And some people are very familiar with that, how to push a mesh and so on. But Rhino's not really built for that. Okay, we still got Fisher.
Yeah,
We're going to be here for a while.
We've got. I don't know how much we want to respect the kind of the schedule that we set up, initially.
Yeah, we're supposed to be done in 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, done with
Yeah.
the talks and the demos, and then freeform. Then.
Okay. Well, you have something to show too, right? You want to do the freeform thing? Fisher, we're going to have to bump you to next time, I think.
Yeah, that's cool.
Is it okay? Because I think it take a little while to go through it, and I don't want to rush you through it.
Yeah, I was late anyway, so I thought it was a 7.
Okay, so do you want to cover?
Sorry.
Do you want to cover your?
Yeah. I'll just. So we try to do like 4 slots of like 5 minutes show and tell. Like, bring us your game, bring us your art, bring us a cool tool that you found and you use, like something so that you can get like quick feedback on things. Actually show it to people instead of like spending like a year on it, 6 months, and then you finally show it like way late. So last time I showed a game that I was working on. Yeah, HDMI would be great. And I have a fancy new version of the game, but I'm actually not going to show you that. I'm going to show you something else that I just started working on. A couple of days ago that was, I don't know, it just kind of captivated my interest, and so I had to try to do something with it. Oh, good. Okay. All right. This is a Leap Motion. It's like a Connect for your hand, or also for tools. Can I have my phone
How much
really
do
quick?
those things cost?
It's like $80.
And what is it called?
Leap Motion.
LEAP?
Yep.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah, no worries. Alright, let's turn off Wi-Fi. So, my wife and I, we went to Florida. We went to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. And if you haven't been, it's really a fantastic setup. And you can get these wands, which are really cool. And you go around the park, and they've got interactive wands where they have a spell that's like set up on the ground, and it says, okay, you do this motion, do. You're supposed to say the incantation, but you know, more advanced wizards can opt not to. And then something will happen in the park. You know, you'll have lights go on, you'll have some animatronic rig like start, you know, whirling around. And it's great. And they have all these like different character wands. This is a Luna Lovegood's wand. And it's really cool. Like the wand shop is great. It's almost like magical stationery. And it makes you want to use it outside of the park, which, you know, you don't really have the ability to do unless you're a game developer. And so what I wanted to do was try to do something where you could, you know, make use of this, you know, outside of the wizarding world. So let's see. So I've got my Harry Potter spells from J.K. Rowling, copyright. So I can't release this, but you know, it's fun. We can play around with this for the moment. So the first you know, trick is, you know, having the wand actually like be detected. So here you can see it is detecting where it's at, and I can do some spells. Let's see.
I love that you need your book.
I do. All right, so spellbook here. Okay, so let's see. So first thing you need to be able to do, so we can see the wand tip. Now we need to, you know, input a spell. Let's try. Sorry. Tarantalegra. That's one. We've got. Let's try locomotor. Locomotor. All right, and let's see. So we want to have like something we can do stuff on, right? Like so, you know, here we've turned the lights on, but you know, I like stuff when it's like in color. So let's you know, do some color. AB Revelio. And let's see what else we got. You know, in this scene, maybe we'll add a plant. I'm not that good at this yet. Abibicus. Okay. And, you know, we could do, let's see, Memento. And, I don't know, maybe it's like dark. And, you know what, I don't like that flower. So, you know, I can... Okay, I messed up my quadrupeds, but that's okay. You know, I can fix them. Anyway, so in the... so at the park, you get to do all these like cool things, you know, where you activate something. And one of the things that I was a little bit disappointed by was that, you know, you're able to activate something, but you're not, you know, it's not like it's only reading your tip to say like, oh, you did this spell. So it's, you know, essentially the interactive equivalent of pushing this button, like on, you know, off, you know. And I really, really wanted them to do something, something like this. Wingardium Leviosa.
Nice.
And yeah, so that's my demo. Okay, and I think we're officially done with the prepared section. So now it's unscheduled time, and people are free to, you know, chat and mingle. Pull out their computers, show other stuff. Oh, did you guys have one thing you want to show?
I mean, we can show it now. We're definitely going to show it later if we don't show it now anyway.
It's up to you. If you want the floor, it's your time to do 5 minutes.
That's good. We just have it like on the screen, so we can.
Sure, just bring it up.
Sure. Alright. So we're part of 7 Layers Studios. I'm Scott Ethington, I'm lead designer. This is Phil Wellhauser. He's another designer. Last time we were here, we showed this game to some people afterwards. At that point, it was called Pizza Underground. It was a game where you are the owner of a pizza shop in a world where pizza had been outlawed. We really liked the concept, but we decided it was way too much for a 4-person team and the amount of time that we had to work on it. So we cut off the underground part. We haven't thought of a better name yet, so it's still Pizza Underground. But now it's more of like a time attack kind of thing where you get in an order and the order has a time limit and you got to make the pizza and send it out within that time and then basically get as many points as you can. So loads from Blue.
What'd you guys use for this?
This is for Unity.
Unity.
Yeah. So you can start by naming your shop. We're going to name it something with the D. We're going to name it Dude. So at the top is the order. It says a small pizza with sauce, cheese, and no toppings. So you can start by rolling out the dough, paint on some sauce, cheese, and then grab the peel and put it in the oven. Now it's in the oven at the bottom, and there's a check mark, which is that little circle there, and you can pull it out.
Oh, no, I'm burning it.
If you lose control of it, it'll burn to a crisp and then just go straight into the compost bin.
Yeah,
and as
sauce,
you see,
cheese, and no toppings.
Yeah, we ran out of time on that receipt, so that we lose one of our lives, and you have 3. And once you lose 3, then game's over, and your score gets added to the high score leaderboards.
Alright, come here, you. Come on, hey. What do you got?
Alright, he's gonna get a real dexterity now.
What happens if you get it out too soon?
When you get it out too soon, you can do that, but you won't get as much money. It's not cooked fully, so the customer might not be happy, but they'll get their pizza. Yeah, and we don't have any more ingredients in right now, but the plans are, as the game goes along, you'll be able to unlock ingredients with the profit that you get.
Oh, got it just in time.
There you go. As you can see here, we just unlocked onions. That's the only unlockable we have right now once you get to 10. So now orders will start coming in asking for onions on pizzas. Yeah, and then also you'll be able to unlock different characters, which will have just like a small added bonus for gameplay. Like some maybe they have a better chance of getting like a perfect on a pizza. One idea we have is that the ingredients will load like a random color, so you'll just get like rainbow pizzas. We're still trying to think of a name.
God, I really have been grabbing it from this angle. Oh no.
Yeah,
Lost.
we lost. Our pizza shop just went out of business. Dude will make no more pizzas. Yeah, and then leaderboards. Right now we have a high score list. Bazooka Raccoon is myself with $3,000. Then we have Yes and Batman. Those are the top 3. So yeah, that's the game as of now. It's pre-alpha, and soon it will have all of the features we're going for.
Probably in like the next 2, maybe 3 weeks, we should be like feature complete.
Yeah.
And then we'll start spicing everything up with some cool polish and interesting toppings.
Make it
like,
tasty.
Like pizza bagels on your pizza, things like that.
Yeah, we're gonna get more ridiculous with the toppings, like pizza bagels, cigars, dollar bills. Yeah, so we'll have it if anybody wants to play afterwards. Yeah.
So, how do you do the scoring aside from just where you pull it out of the oven?
There's like an invisible grid on the pizza, so it checks to see how much of whatever topping is in each space of the
We call it the
grid.
pizza matrix.
Yeah.
So is it just like coverage of the pizza?
Yeah, just coverage in general. It doesn't do depth. We had it with depth for a while, but then it was kind of awkward to do that.
It didn't really lend itself well to gameplay.
Yeah.
It made sense.
Yeah, realistically, it makes sense, but it's not fun. But yeah, and then there's 4 different stages: perfect, pretty good, meh, and barf.
Barf pizza.
Yeah.
So when do you guys think you're gonna have the game ready, and then what are your possible pricing, putting it out there, marketing?
Let's see, for when it will be ready, our alpha soon, and then maybe like a month or so after that, beta, and then like another month. We haven't completely nailed down when we're gonna have it out.
We've had a lot of resources coming in and out of our group, so it's hard to nail down any real timeline. But I think by August we'll be done, like for sure.
For pricing, we're thinking the game will be free. And you can unlock characters as you play, or you can pay $1 to get all the characters. For marketing, that's another thing we haven't really nailed down. We're hoping to be able to go to a lot of conferences in the near future to show people the game and get word out. But that's kind of a local thing.
And this game itself, because it's free, we're hoping for it to act sort of like a marketing strategy for us in the future. We don't really want to market our game so much as we want to market our studio. So people will be like, oh, I got this free game from them once, and then they'll... Yeah,
it'll be more something that it doesn't fund us, but it'll be something that we can show, we did this thing, here's why you should pay attention to the rest of us. So, yeah, that's kind of our plan.
Speaking of marketing, there's the Maker Faire coming up in September, the end of September. I was considering getting a table for the Vermont Game Developers Group. So if you have a game that you're interested in showcasing, it's essentially a weekend. So it's like a 3-day thing. And I figure, if we have enough people with enough interest, we could have essentially time slots for there could be 3 games or 2 games going at the table per time. We could split up into half-day segments, whatever. You can come, you can have your game on showcase. There's a lot of kids. It's a really cool event. I really like it. I've been there the last 2 years, and it's been great every time. Jeff was there last year, showing off Neurobotic, and it's a great way to get people to see your game, and get kind of known. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so that's our show.